Thank you for watching this video demonstration of comparing groups using descriptive statistics. So we can use descriptive statistics to help us understand differences between groups. And we can do that side by side in Jamovi to really show the comparison. And examples of what we could answer using this kind of comparison could be something like if we were looking at, is there a difference between last year's students' exam scores and this year's students' exam scores? We could do that in Jamovi. In this video, we're going to focus on looking at a group comparison for our participants, showing is there a difference in age? So we want to know, is there a difference in age between those who self-identify as Democrats, Independents, or Republicans? So we're looking at these political groups that people are affiliated with. And is there a difference in age? So that's what we'll focus on. Before we get into the comparison, we want to make sure that we're preparing the data to be appropriate for the analysis. So what we mean by that in the real world, this really has a lot of meaning because we want to make sure that, when we're collecting data and we upload it into Jamovi, it's not going to be set to the right measure type for us to be able to do the analysis. And sometimes when we're given a data set and we open it up in Jamovi, it's not in the right measure type. So we want to make sure that it's set up for us to be able to run this comparison. All right, so the first column we're going to look at is political group. That's our grouping variable. Double click on the header, and this will open up the data variable field. We want to make sure that the measure type is set to nominal. We can make sure that it's nominal when we see this little icon with the 3 intersecting circles. You'll see that right next to the name of the column in the header itself. So the grouping variable needs to be nominal. Then we look at the other variable of interest, which is age. I'll double click on that header. This opens up the data variable field. We want to make sure that age is set to continuous, and we can see this little measuring stick or ruler icon indicates the data that's in that column is continuous. So the grouping variable is nominal, and our outcome variable, or our variable of interest, which in this case is age, is continuous. We'll close that up. And this is really relevant, again, when we have raw data in the real world, that we want to make sure that the measure type is appropriate. The other thing we want to make sure of when we're working with raw data is that our data is structured correctly. And what I mean by that is, how does it appear in the spreadsheet? In this, when we want to compare groups, we want to make sure the groups are all in one column and our outcome of variable is in one column. We call that data structure stacked. So we can see that all of the participants' responses in terms of political group affiliation are stacked and their corresponding ages are stacked. If we looked at a contrast of what the other type of structure is, this is considered wide format, where we have the political groups side by side and then their ages side by side. We could still do the analysis, but it wouldn't allow us to see them side by side. They'd be all independent analysis. So we could still do it, but we want to show how do we do it side by side. So let's go back to our data here. So we have our measure type correct, our data structure is correct, and now we're ready for our analysis. So what we want to do is we're going to go up to our menu up here. We're going to select exploration. The first item is descriptives. Then we see over here in our results, once we selected descriptives, something happens in our results field. However, we need to tell Jamovi, what do we want our descriptive analysis on? So we're going to move age into the variable box because that's the outcome of interest. And we can see that we have some descriptive statistics. What this is giving us is for the entire group. So we see there's 50 participants. This is their mean age, median age, standard deviation of age, but we're interested in individual groups. But we're not interested in describing the age of the entire group. We want to see it split by the different groups, the political affiliated groups. So we're going to select our political group variable or data and move it into the split by box. And now we see the results expanding. What we see now is each group's how many participants said that they were Democrat, how many said that they were Republican, how many said that they were independent. We see their mean age, their median age, standard deviation, min and max. Let's clean this up to make it a little bit more condensed. So if I click on my statistics menu, I'm going to uncheck missing. And what missing is indicating, and this can be really helpful in the real world, is if it's not 0, it says 1, that means one of our participants didn't answer this question. So that means we have missing data. But in this case, we have no missing data, so I'm going to uncheck that. I don't want the median. I am going to keep the standard deviation and the min and max, and then that gives us our summarized descriptive statistics for age for each of the groups. So for Democrats, their mean age is 24.24, Republicans is 24.89, Independent is 24.43, and then we can see all of the descriptive statistics are broken up by group. If I close up this descriptive or the statistics menu, let's create a bar plot so we can look at the pattern of the data. So when I select bar plot, what I can see is a graph. We can see that on the x-axis, these are the political group affiliations, and here on the y-axis is the average age. And what we see is there's not a whole lot of difference in terms of age. They're pretty close in age. These little bars here indicate the variability. These are what is called standard error bars. So we can see there's less variability for Democrat, a little bit more variability for Republican, and a lot of variability for Independent. And that's what that indicates with the error bars, or the standard deviation bars really help us understand the variance of our group. So the important thing I don't know if it's that important, but it might be important if you wanted to change the way that the groups appear in our graph. Say we have Democrat, Republican, and Independent. Maybe we want to put it in alphabetical order. What we can do is we'll go back to our data, and we need to click on our political group and see this box here, levels. This indicates the order of respondents. So the first political group affiliation was Democrat. The first person said Democrat. The next new category that appeared was Republican, and the last was Independent. So if we wanted to move Republican down, we just highlight it and then move it down with this little arrow. And then when we click up, we can go back to our graph here, and now we can see it's Democrat, Independent, and Republican. So that's a way to change the order of the responses, which can be helpful if we want to modify how our graph looks, if we wanted it in alphabetical order, or if we wanted to change the way that it looks. Because the bars are not that much different, it doesn't make a whole lot of difference, but it does change the order of the categories. So that's how we would do a group comparison. We see that visually there's not a whole lot of difference in terms of age. They're pretty close in average age, but what we see is there's a lot more variance in age in Independent in comparison to Democrat and Republican. So that's a 3-group comparison using Jamovi.